Kadosh Boker Tov Masechet Megillah. Okay, Daf Bet Amud Aleph 2A1. Yesterday we did an entire introduction and we went through the entire Mishnah. If you remember, going back and forth about all the dates. So today we're going to go a little bit quicker, right? But we are going to from the beginning. Megillah Nikret Yud Aleph Yud Bet Yud Gimel Yud Daled Betetvav. So the Megillah is going to be read, whether it's going to be on the 11th of Adar, 12th of Adar, 13th of Adar, 14th of Adar, or the 15th of Adar. Lo pachot velo yoter, not less than that, meaning not before the 11th of Adar, and lo yoter, and not more than that, meaning not after the 15th of Adar. It will never be after that. Okay? Krakina mukafin choma mimot, right? Yoshua bin Nun. Whenever we're going to talk about krakin, which we're talking about walled cities, okay, big cities that are walled from the days of Yomot Yoshua bin Nun, Korim betetvav. They are going to read it on the 15th. So the rule is that walled cities are always on the 15th unless there's a force majeure. Remember that. Always on the 15th unless there's a force majeure. Kfarim vayarot dolot korim yudalet. Now, kfarim, which are villagers, okay, people that live in villages, and ayarot dolot, big cities, korim yudalet, they will read on the 14th, right? Ella shakfarim makdimim yom haknisa, but the kfarim are going to be makdimim yom haknisa, which means the villagers, sometimes they will go to yom haknisa. Remember, we learned Rashi yesterday. What was Rashi? Rashi comes and says, what is yom haknisa? The days that they come in for bedin. Bedin used to recite on Monday and Thursday. So therefore, since the bedin used to come and they used to be on Monday and Thursday, that's when they used to do the bedin. Yeah, one more time. We just said that the kfarim, which are basically going to be villagers. Villagers are that they come in on Mondays and Thursdays. They come into the cities, right, in order for the bedin. Okay, so now the general rule is that the big cities are always on the 14th, unless force majeure. Villagers are the ones that play around. That they are going to be makdimim yom haknisa, as the Mishnah says. So Ketzad, now what the Mishnah is going to do is going to give you an overview of all the different cases. So please pay attention. If the 14th, remember, we're always talking about the 14th. The 14th, if it's going to come out on a Monday. So then, right, what do you do? Right? Right? When you have on Monday, right, what do you do then? Yeah? Okay? If now the 14th comes out on Monday, so villagers and big cities are going to read it on the same day on Monday. Mukafot choma, the ones which are walled cities, lemachar is going to be the next day. If it's going to come out now on Tuesday or Wednesday, so kfarim makdimim yom haknisa. So then, right, the kfarim are going to read it when? On Yom HaKnisa. When is Yom HaKnisa? Monday, Thursday. In this case, Monday, Yom Sheni. Very good. Vayarot Zolot, the big cities, on the same day. Korim bo bayom, whether it's Tuesday or Wednesday. Umukafot choma, and the ones which are walled cities, when? The next day. So it's going to be lemachar. Whichever day it is. Right? If it was Tuesday, so the walled cities do Wednesday. If it was Wednesday, walled cities do Thursday. Okay? No. A village is a small village. If it's a walled city. And you would never wall a village. You would only wall a city. A city is a walled city. Right? Yeah. Chaliyot b'chamishi. Right? If it's going to be on the 5th, right? Which means on the 5th day of the week, which is Thursday. Kvarim v'yarot dolot. So the villages and the big cities, korim bo bayom. So the villages and the big cities are going to read the Megillah on the same day, and right, the Mukafot Choma is going to be on Friday, the next day. Chaliot erev Shabbat. What about now if it comes out on erev Shabbat? So Kfarim makdimim yom haknisa. The villagers do Thursday. Ayerot dolot, the big cities do on the same day. Mukafot Choma also on the same day. Everybody does it on the same day on the Friday. Okay. That's if it's. Kemo shana shavra, bediuk. Mordechai tzodek.
So the kfarim they do on
just like last year. What?
Thursday? Kfarim is the big city on Thursday?
No. Kfarim do on Thursday. The big cities do on Friday. It's on Friday. The big cities do it always on the same day.
What's Mukafot?
Walled cities.
Oh, that's
Mukafot, surrounded by a choma, a wall.
They used to different.
The walled cities would do the same.
Walled cities? Well, in this case, yes, because walled cities cannot do it on Shabbat. One more time. If it came out on Friday, when is Tetvav? Shabbat. Can you read the Megillah on Shabbat? No. So when do you read it? Friday. You never push it, you never go forward, always backwards.
That's the big cities and the Chomot.
So this case, the big cities and the Chomot, we'll do it on what? Tetvav. Yes.
חל בשישי, לא בשבת.
Yeah. Okay. Next, Chaliot b'Shabbat. If the 14th, pay attention. If the 14th comes out on Shabbat, nowadays, disclaimer, nowadays this does not happen. But if it did happen, because in the olden days he didn't have a set calendar before he lived, so therefore it could happen. So if now, so the small cities do it on which cities? The villagers or cities? What are you talking about? Villagers, you do it on Thursday. Very good. Big cities do it on Friday and Sunday. Chazak u'baruch. Right? So now here it says that they don't do it on Friday; they do it on Thursday. So this is actually going to become a machloket in the Gemara because Ronen, technically, he was tzodek. Why can't he do it on Friday? Meaning like this: if already the 14th came out on Shabbat, the kfarim, the villagers, that you push them back to Thursday, that's obvious. Because remember, villagers are always Monday and Thursday. That's it, right? But what about big cities? Why did you push the big cities back to the Thursday? You could push it back to Friday, and that's it. So we're going to speak about that in the Gemara, but this Mishnah is saying that it's going back.
Which day, Rabbi?
Yeah?
Because it should just be Sunday.
The Gemara, right? We just finished the Mishnah. The Mishnah just finished actually by saying, but if it comes out on Sunday, so then Kfarim are going to do on Thursday, right? Ayrot Dolot are on the same Sunday, Mukafot Koma the next day. Says the Gemara. Okay, everybody has it. Gemara on Bet Amud Aleph. Says the Gemara. Megilah Nikreb Yud Aleph. Says the Gemara. The Megilah is going to be read on the 11th of Adar, Menalan. Right? How do we know this? Says the Gemara, Menalan? What do you mean, Menalan? How do you know that we read on the 11th? We're going to say later on. Later on it says, the Chachamim were mekilim on the Kfarim, yeah, to come and to be magdim Yom HaKnisa, to the Yom HaKnisa, which means why? The rabbis were lenient on the villagers in order to do it on the Monday and Thursday, in order that they should be able to come and give water and food to their brothers in the krachim, which means that we thought, and this is the way that we read it in the Rashi, if you remember, we thought that it was a leniency on the kfarim. It was a leniency on the people that they lived in the villages, and we didn't want to make them have an extra tircha in order to come back. Here we're saying it was for us. We live in the big cities, and we need the people that live in the small villages, right, to come and to start giving us things. So we want, whether it's going to be food, drink. Now, if he's going to have to come to us, right, on the regular, so he's not going to give us food in the, hey, we need him to work, right? So how do we get him to work? Very simple. You read it on the Monday and Thursday, and then when it's the real Purim, that's when you come and you start serving us, okay? So says the Gemara, Anan Hachi coming in. That wasn't what we said. This is what we said as follows. That we said like this, Anan Hachi coming in. This is what we meant to say. Michti, it was stated. Everything was instituted by who? By the Anshe Knesset Gdolah, right? The Isa, if you're going to tell me now, Anshe Knesset Gdolah, they instituted Yudalev Tetvam Takun, which means that they came and they instituted it only on the 14th and the 15th. Atu Rabbanan ve'akre takanta detekinu Anshe Knesset Gdolah. The rabbis are going to come and they're going to annul that which Anshe Knesset Gdolah came and they annulled. But now we learned in the Mishnah, a one betin cannot go against another betin unless they're greater in numbers and in wisdom, right? So therefore, it can't happen. So elapshita, but rather it's obvious. So everything was instituted by Anshe Knesset Gdolah. So heicha ramiza. So where is the remez exactly? Where is this hint? Gemara. So says the Gemara, right? Elapshita, it has to be, it's obviously that everything was instituted by Anshe Knesset Gdolah. So heicha ramiza. Where's the remez? Meaning, if somebody's going to ask you now, where's the remez that you could do 11, 12, and 13? So says the Gemara is going to give two different answers. Pay attention. Two different answers. Where is it hinted in the Megillah that you're going to read also on 11, 12, and 13? Because in the Megillah written, it's only written 14 and 15. There's nothing else written. Okay? So says the Gemara, Amar B'Shima Barabba, Amar Yochanan, Amar Kra, says B'Shima Barabba, and Yochanan, it says in the Pasuk, Lekayem et yemei Purim ha'ele bizmanehem. You have to fulfill the days of Purim, bizmanehem, in their times. Why does it say in their times? Right? So says the Gemara, Zmanim arbeh tiknu lehem. right? Which means that there's a lot of times, right? The fact that it says you have to fulfill the words of the days of the Purim in their times, plural.
No,
So
it
there's
could
time.
be
There's
the
time.
2 days. No, it could
Says
be
the
the
Gemara, Chaimi Baile Legufe, says 1 second. You need it for itself. Why do you need it for itself? But at the end of the day, if you have plural 14, 15, Bismanehem is 14, 15. Says Chaim, yeah, Rabbenu Chaim. He says 1 second. What's going on? He says we already need it for itself. So in Ken, says the Gemara, no. In Ken Limakra Zman. You could have said Lekayem et Yamei Purim Haele Bazman. What's Zman? The Zman which is written in the Megillah, right? My Zmanehem. Why is it written Zmanehem? Zmanim Tuva, to tell you there's a lot of times. So says the Gemara, fine. But you still need Zmano Shel Zeh, Loki Zmano Shel Zeh. You still need it at this time is not the same as the other time, right? Which means like this. How do you know, right, that you read on the 14th for big cities, and the 15th for walled cities? Maybe Bemet you read for both, meaning 14 and 15 also for walled cities, also for big cities, or the opposite. Maybe for walled cities you read 2 days, and for the big cities you only read 1 day. Or how do you know which one's which? So there's a concept which is called Zmano Shel Zeh, Loki Zmano Shel Zeh. The time of one is not the same time as the other, which means big cities do not read the same day as walled cities, and walled cities do not read the same day as big cities. Zmano Shel Zeh, Loki Zmano Shel Zeh, Zmano Shel Zeh, Loki Zmano Shel Zeh. So how do you learn that from? Says the Gemara, Im Ken,
many
countries. What? So he comes and he says, if so, Lemakra Zmanam. All you had to say was Lekayem et Yemei Purim Haele Bizmanam. My Zmanehem. It's adding an extra yod hey. Bizmanehem. Just say Bizmanam. So he says Shema Mina Kulhu. Right? I'm going to come and I'm going to say it's everything. What does that mean? I'm adding in all the extra times. What are the extra times? Yudalef, Yudbet, Yudgimel. I'm adding in it. So says the Gemara, right? Right? So right, right? So he says, 1 second. If I'm already going to add, why don't I add that which was already written in the Megillah? How many days was written in the Megillah? 2. So why don't I add in 2? Says the Gemara, Zmanehem dumya dizmanam, ma zmanam trei, af zmanehem trei. Just like the Zman is 2, so 2 Zmanehem is also going to be 2, right? Which means 2 for 2. Why am I adding in 3 for 2? You understand? You've seen a BOGO, which is buy 1, get 1. You've seen buy 2, get 2. Publix is usually that, yeah? Buy 2, get 2. But you've never seen buy 2, get 3. No? Have you seen that? Yeah, where?
Not yet.
Yeah, you don't see those things. Buy 2, get 3. Doesn't work. Here, right? Buy 1, get 1, it happens. You see it, BOGO. Buy 2, get 2, you see it. But you don't have buy 2, get 3. Here you have 2 in the Megillah, 14, 15. Now you want to add 3. 11, 12, 13. What's going on? So says the Gemara, answers the Gemara. There's a very interesting answer. Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak says, right? So he says, sorry, one more time. So he says, Mazmanam trei, asmanem trei. Just like it's 2, so 2 should be 2. So says the Gemara, Veima trei saru tleisa. So he says, so if it's like that, why don't we just say it's 12 and 13? Right? 12 and 13. So says the Gemara, Kedam Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak, Yud Gimel Zman Kila Lakolhi. He says, no, the 13th is Zman Kila for everybody. Velot tzarich lerebuye, and you don't have to add it. So achanami, so to you give zman kila lekoli velot tzarich lerebuye. What does that mean? If you look in Rashi, Rashi says it's on the top left. Remember, usually, right? Usually, what happens is that usually Rashi is always on the right side, like the inner side of the page. Okay, the inner side, right? Yeah, exactly. Where the stitches is, which is usually on the inside of the page. Here, Rashi, since there's no Tosafot, so Rashi is on both sides of the page. Mm-hmm. So here on the top, right, on the top left, you have also that's Rashi, and it says Zman Kila Lakolhi. It's the third wide line. So the third wide line says Zman Kila Lakolhi. Hakol nikalu linakem meoivehem. Everybody gathered to take vengeance against their enemies. Ben b'Shushan, whether it's in Shushan, ben b'Shar Mekomot, or in other places. Just like it's written in the Megilah Daf. Hilkach, therefore, lo tzarich kra lerebuye sheyeh ra'ui lekriya. You don't need a pasuk to add in that it's fitting to read it. You don't need it. Tikar hanes boya. The main miracle happened on the 13th. So if the main miracle happened on the 13th, so therefore what happens, right? So he comes and he says, right? You can say, he says, 1 second. Since the main miracle happened on the 13th, so therefore what happens? If the main miracle happened on the 13th, so what happened? You don't need to be Mosik. You don't need a pasuk to add it on. If you don't need a pasuk to add it on, so for you only need a pasuk to add on another 2. So now it's 2 for 2. You get 11 and 12 that you're adding it on. 14, 15 is already written in the Megillah. And 13th, you don't need a pasuk. So that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, you give him zman kila lakolhi, velo tzarich l'ribuye. Hachanami, so to here, you give him zman kila lakolhi, velo tzarich l'ribuye. So ask the Gemara, if you're already adding 2 for 2, ve'ema shitzar ve'shivsar, why don't I say it's 16 and 17? Why don't I just say it's 16 and 17? Answers the Gemara, velo ya'avor ketiv. It's written that velo ya'avor. What does it mean velo ya'avor? Lo yoter. Lo yoter is, no, but lo pachot is just not before because we can't go before, but lo yoter is an obligation. Why cannot be lo ya'avor? It's written. What does it mean lo ya'avor? Lo ya'avor means you can never pass the 15th, right? Or the 5th or the 14th in the big cities, and you're not going to read Purim. Purim, the Megillah has to be read before. It can never be read afterwards, because that's what it says, velo ya'avor. It cannot pass these days. Since it's written velo ya'avor, I cannot add in the 16 and 17. So therefore, automatically, it has to be the 12, right? The 12th, the 11th, and the 12th.
Why is it written velo ya'avor?
In the Megillah. It's written velo ya'avor. If you look in the Pasukim, it says lekayem et yemei hapurim haele bizmanehem kasher kiyam le'nesar makah v'chulu v'chulu. Bet kiblu v'koyev. It says right kimu v'kiblu yehudim alehem v'azaram v'kol nevim alehem velo ya'avor. Liot osim et shnei yamim haele kirtavam v'chizmem choshelam shana. Remember that you have what's called Torah Ora Shalem. Torah Ora Shalem is on the side, and that's where it brings down the entire pasuk. So that's where it explains to you exactly, right, that it's not never going to pass by the day of the Purim. Okay, so that was the first of the Gemara. So one more time, first answer of the Gemara. How do you know that you're able to add on, right, beforehand? So we say from Bizmanehem. So the Gemara was saying to do with the Bizmanehem that you're adding in 2 days, 2 days for 2 days. Why do we say 13? Bizman kila lakoli. Second answer. Okay, second answer says the Gemara. Shmuel ben Nachmani Amar. Shmuel ben Nachmani comes and he says, Amarka, it's another pasuk. What's a pasuk? The pasuk says, Kayamim ashanachu b'hem Yehudim yamim kayamim. The days which the Jews, they rested from their enemies. Kayamim ashanachu b'hem Yehudim. Say when it says yamim, yamim kayamim. The days, just like those days. Meaning instead of saying zmanim, just like zmanehem, meaning like one time for another time, you're saying days like for other days. In the Megillah, how many days were there? 2 days. So you're adding on days for days. So it says the Gemara, Lirabot, Yudalev Yudbe. Ask the Gemara, why did you add on 11 and 12? Ve'ima, why don't you just say Treisar or Treisar? It's 12 and 13. Says the same answer as the Gemara. Amar Reb Shimon bar Yitzchak says Reb Shimon bar Yitzchak, Yud Gimel Zman Kila Lakoli v'lo tzarich l'Rebuye. The Yud Gimel is Zman Kila Lakol, and therefore you don't have to add on. So therefore we're adding on 11 and 12 and not 13, but 13 you don't need to add on. Ask the Gemara, Ve'ima Shitza v'Shivsar. Why don't we say it's a 16 and the 17? And so the Gemara, velo yavor ktiv, right? We're not velo yavor. Until now, it's exact same as we mentioned. There's the Gemara, Rav Shmuel ben Nachmani, right? Why doesn't he say from Bizmanehem? Right? Why doesn't he say Rav Shmuel ben Nachmani? Why didn't he say Bizmanehem? Why did he need another pasuk from Yamim Kayamim? So answers the Gemara, I'm in the second wide lines, yeah? So he says, Lomar Bizmanehem. So he says, Zman, Zmanam, Zmanehem lo mashmele. He doesn't like this thing about Zman, Zmanam, Zmanehem. He doesn't like it. You say it's all the same in Hebrew. Zman, Zmanam, Zmanehem. He doesn't like it. Since he doesn't like it, he prefers Yamim Kayamim. Rav Shimon bar Abba, why didn't he say Yamim Kayamim? Amalecha, he's going to answer you, Hahu ledorotu dichti. This is going to be 4 generations, meaning that Yamim Kayamim, right? It's not, Yamim is like the days. What the days? In the future generations, for all generations, we're going to rest on the 14th and the 15th. So it's not coming to add on another 2 extra days. It's coming to teach you in the future, right? In all generations until today, what do? Purim on the 14th and 15th. Why? Because Yamim, Kayamim, because of those days. But it's not coming to add on 11, 12. So because of that, he needed Zman, Zmanim, Zmanehem. So now we understand why each one did not learn like the other one. Dot. Okay, they're both the same thing. They're both the same thing. Now one of them is saying that it's true that it's for generations. Another one is just saying he didn't like it. Here, okay, one more time. Until here we added in, right? Until here we added in, right? The entire concept of 11, 12, 13. Now we understood Mishnah. Mishnah says 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now we understand. So now says the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan, Zod divrei Rabbi Akiva setimata. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva setimata. The reason why it's setimata is, remember, because a lot of stam mishnahs, right? Rebbe, he was satam like Rebbe Akiva. Okay, that's one explanation. But if you look in Rashi on left side where it says Timata, he says Arbe stam Mishnah satam Rebbe she'en divrei Rebbe Akiva. The Yesh Mefarsim, some people say Setimata kol astumim talmidav. All the ones which are satum are all meaning without an author. That's what it means satum. They all come from Rebbe Akiva. Like this, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, Daf Amud Aleph. Stam Mishnah. Who's Stam Mishnah like who? Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir Balanes. He was a student of. He was a student of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Meir Balanes was a student of Rabbi Akiva. Stam Tosefta. Who's Stam Tosefta? Rabbi Nehemiah. Right? Stam Sifra. Rabbi Yehuda. The Kulus Timitaya Libad Rabbi Akiva. They're all according to Rabbi Akiva. Basically, he says that Rashi says, I have a question on that because sometimes you do see stimata and it's not the students of Rabbi Akiva, nothing to do with Rabbi Akiva. But there is the Gemara that the Gemara says the majority of the stimatas do come like Rabbi Akiva. So therefore it says, these are the words of Rabbi Akiva stimata, the Darish, that he was the one that made the Derasha. Zman zmanam zmanehem. Aval chachamim omerim, but the rabbis say, en korin ota la bizmana. Which means our Mishnah is in accordance to Rabbi Akiva. That you do read it 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. But according to the rabbis, you only read it when? 14 and 15. Only 14, 15. That means our Mishnah is like Rabbi Akiva. Put it out. It's Rabbi Akiva. It's not Chachamim. Says the Gemara, Matri, we're going to ask a question again. It says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda says Rabbi Yehuda, Imatai, when do we do this? Right? When are we going to come? Right? This is what we're trying to say over here. Okay? And we're going to say as follows, right? Ematai, right? When are the kfarim going to be makdimin yom knisa? Only when. It means when are the villagers going to come and start reading it on the Monday and Thursday? Only when when Bnei Yisrael are in Eretz Yisrael and everything is normal. But nowadays, since they're always looking towards the Megillah, right? What does that mean? Right? Everybody is looking towards the Megillah, right? In order to find out when it's going to be Pesach. Right? We have to find out when it's Pesach. How do you find out when it's Pesach? Find out when the Megillah is. 30 days later is Pesach. So he says, En korino tala bizmana. You're only going to read it in the proper time. So Rabbi Yehuda, aliba deman. Who's Rabbi Yehuda going according to? So if you're going to tell me, aliba de Rabbi Akiva, if you're going to tell me it's according to Rabbi Akiva, afilu bizmana zei italahai tekanta. According to Rabbi Akiva, that's even bizmana zei. Remember, Rabbi Akiva was during the time of the Churban or afterwards? Afterwards. So if he's after the time of the Churban Bet HaMikdash, and still Rabbi Akiva held that in our Mishnah, the villagers are still going to read 11, 12, and 13. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda is not going according to Rabbi Akiva. Because according to Rabbi Akiva, even nowadays, when we're not in Eretz Yisrael, and the Shanim are not like Etikunan, do we still do 11, 12, 13, 14? Yes. According to Rabbi Akiva, yes. Elalav, or rather, Rabbi Yehuda said, going according to Rabbanan. Right? But if it was going to be the Bnei Yisrael were in Eretz Yisrael, we would allow them to read it on 11, 12, 13, 14. So obviously, Tiyufta Rabbi Yochanan, Tiyufta. So this is obviously a Tiyufta against Rabbi Yochanan. Why? Rabbi Yochanan, one more time. It said, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, name Rabbi Yochanan. Our Mishnah is according to Rabbi Akiva Stimata, says the Gemara, it's not true. Why? It's according to everybody. Because Rabbi Yehuda came and he asked the question, when is it that the villagers come inside? They come inside only when we're in Eretz Yisrael and we have everything normal. But if we are not, then no, says the Gemara. Who's he going like? If you're going like Rabbi Akiva, our Mishnah is even until today. And if you're going like Chachamim, so that means that's a proof that if Pemet Bnei Yisrael were in their land, we would read it in 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's not like Rabbi Yochanan. So this is a tiyut on Rabbi Yochanan, a refutation against Rabbi Yochanan. Ika de Amni. There are those that say, now according to this, we flip it. Remember, whenever the Gemara says Ika de Amni, it says there are those that say we have a different version of the Gemara. And according to the different version of the Gemara, beforehand, maybe it was a question. Now maybe it's going to become a proof. So now let's see. The Gemara says, Ika de Amri. There are those that say the same words. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Zu divrei Rabbi Akiva stimata. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva stimata, meaning our Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva stimata. So until here, the exact same. Aval, but, Chachamim Amru, the rabbi said, Bizman hazeh, nowadays, Hoilu mistaklim ba en korinota bizmana. Nowadays, since we look at Purim to find out when it's Pesach, we only read it in the proper time. So now, according to this, now Rabbi Yehuda is not going to be a question. Now Rabbi Yehuda is going to be a proof. Why? We also learned in the right time. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda, Emmatai, when do the villagers go in and they read 11, 12, 13? Only when Bnei Yisrael are on their land and everything is normal. But nowadays, since everyone wants to find out, and we're only going to read in the proper time. So according to this Ika de Amri, it wasn't a question against him, it was a proof. So in the first Braita, Rabbi Yochanan Stimata says that this is only going to Rabbi Akiva. Chachamim argue on Rabbi Akiva from one katzeh la katzeh sheni, meaning Rabbi Akiva says that even until today, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and according to Chachamim, never, it's only 14 and 15, right? Then we had a question against that, and we refuted that, Rabbi Yochanan. The second Mandamar, the second Ika Damri, says, no. Rabbi Akiva says, nowadays even, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, comes the rabbis, he said, no, Rabbi Akiva, we agree with you. But only when Bnei Yisrael are in their land and everything is normal. Then we agree with you. But if we're not, meaning we're not in our land and everything is not normal, so then we only do Bizmanan, the 14, 15. Says the Gemara, we have a proof to that. What's a proof? Rabbi Yehuda. And now it comes out beautiful, Rabbi Yochanan. Okay? Until here clear? Point. There's a dot here. Okay? Next. Ravashi, Kashele, Rabbi Yehuda. Ravashi, he actually had a contradiction, right, between Rabbi Yehuda and the Braita and Rabbi Yehuda and the Mishnah, right? Umukimla bet amubet, to be, right? To be or not to be. So it says Mukimla le Braita ke Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. So he placed the Braita like Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, meaning he had a stira, contradiction between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda. So he just said, no. That Rabbi Yehuda was not Rabbi Yehuda, it's Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. So it's not the same person. Once it's not the same person, so now there's no contradiction in it. So says the Gemara, now we're going to try to find out what was the question to Ravashi. Ravashi had a contradiction in Rabbi Yehuda. What was the contradiction? So says the Gemara, Umiyam Rabbi Yehuda, does Rabbi Yehuda actually say, Bizman hazeh nowadays, Holu mistaklimba, since they're going to come and they're going to start looking when is Purim in order to know when is Pesach, and you're only going to read in the proper time? Or meaning we have a contradiction. Rabbi Yehuda says Rabbi Yehuda, Emmatai, when is the Megillah going to be read on 11, 12, and 13? Only if they come in on Monday and Thursday, right? Why? Because there's a bedin kavua. Let's say there's no bedin kavua, they don't come in, right? So they're only going to read it in the proper time. However, though a place that they do come in on Monday and Thursday, and they are going to read it even nowadays, right? Which means the stira is, we just said that according to Rabbi Yehuda, nowadays we do not read it on 11, 12, 13, only in the proper time. Here, the Braita is saying mefurash, right? This is a Mishnah. The Mishnah is saying mefurash later on in Hamud Aleph, says Rabbi Yehuda, that if they do go in on Monday and Thursday, you do read it on the proper time. Even nowadays, you read it on 11, 12, 13. So he says, so mukim la Braita, so therefore he places Braita like Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore it's not a question from the Mishnah of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds in the Mishnah that afilu bizman hazeh. Even nowadays they could read it 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. But according to Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, no. Nowadays you never read it on 11, 12, 13. It's only 14, 15. So says the Gemara, 1 second. Nishum de kashele de Rabbi Yehuda, mukim la lebraita Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. He says, I don't understand you. Imagine right now you have a contradiction between two sayings of a human being. So now you're just going to change the name? Imagine that I heard, right, that Ronen said, right, apples are oranges. And then I heard that Ronen said apples are apples and oranges are oranges. So then what I say, 1 second, I have a contradiction between Ronen and Ronen. So what am I going to say? One is Ronen Kohen and one is Ronen Michael. What do you do that? Right? What are you doing? You have a contradiction between Rabbi Yehuda. So now all of a sudden you're going to come, you're going to say, one is Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, one is Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, Mishum de kasha de Rabbi Yehuda, mukim la lebraita ke Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. And says the Gemara, Ravashi shmiya ledika de tanin le Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Ravashi learned this Freita, and he learned it in two different versions. One version they learned it as Rabbi Yehuda, and the other version they learned it as Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. So therefore, once he now had a question, now that he had a contradiction between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda, he said the one that said it was Rabbi Yehuda, it's lav daf. The one that said Rabbi Yosef Yehuda, it's daf. Yeah. Now we're by the two dots. The two dots said, so the walled cities from Yoshua bin Nun, they're going to read on the 15th. Says the Gemara, how do we know these words? That the ones which are mukafot choma, they're going to read, the ones which are walled cities are going to read it from the 15th. Amar Rava comes and he says, the Amar Ka, it's a pasuk. Al kena Yehudim perazim hayoshavim b'arev perazon. Therefore, the Jews which are scattered there, which are in the scattered cities, they are going to read on the 14th. So therefore, since the prazim are ba'asar, so mukafin or chamayin shasa, which is automatic. Automatic is, if I'm going to say that the scattered cities which are big cities. Big cities, they're scattered. They're all scattered. There's no wall that contains them and puts them inside of a city. So therefore, scattered cities are going to be the 14th. Automatically, who's going to be the 15th? The walled cities. So says the Gemara, Ve'ima Prazim. Which one? Yes. So he says, Ve'ima Prazim Barbasar, Mukafim Klalu Klalo. Why don't I just say that the Prazim are in the 14th and the Mukafim, they're not going to read it? So says the Gemara, what's the Habami? I don't understand you. You're going to tell me that the 14th, they read it on the 14th, meaning the scattered cities on the 14th. When do the walled cities read it? Never. What, they're not Jews? I don't understand.
Right? Why don't they read it the 14 also?
Then furthermore, right? Mehodu vat kush ketif. So he says, it's written, Mehodu vat kush. Hodu vat kush, some people say it was from one end of the world till the end of the world. And other people say they were right beside each other. But that means if they're right beside each other, it was the entire world, the other way around. But basically, it was the entire world. He was the king over the entire world. So if he was the king, everybody read the Megillah. You're going to tell me now that they don't read the Megillah? It doesn't make sense. Says the Gemara, no, you're right. No, that wasn't the pshat. The aim, I'm going to say, Prazim is on the 14th, but that's written in the Megillah. Prazim is on the 14th. Umukafin, right? And the Mukafin Choma is going to be on the 14th and 15th. So that means the 14th and 15th, that means the ones in the walled cities, they're 2 for 1s. 14th plus 15th. So it says the Gemara, it says, you have to do the 14th and the 15th. So says the Gemara, no. If it was written the 14th and the 15th without an extra et, without a pasek, without something in the middle, right, stopping it, then it's exactly what you just said. But but now that it's written et yom arba'asar ve'et yom chamishasar, et, right? There's 2, so therefore ata et upasek. The et is coming and making a pasek. It's making a pasek. What's a pasek? Baba Haki, tell me what's a pasek? Huh? Yeah, but what is a pasek? You stop. Ati pasek says the pasek, says the Gemara, right? Hani arba'asar ve'hani chamisasar. No, this is the 14th and this is the 15th. So the et, which was a pasek, is coming making an interruption. One is a 14th and one is a 15th. So says the Gemara, ve'ima prazim barbeisar mukafin ibao barbeisar b'chamisar. One second. Why don't we do the opposite? The prazim are always 14. That we can never change. But maybe the mukafin, which are the walled cities, maybe if they choose, if they want, they could do the 14th. If they want, they could do the 15th. It depends on them. Sometimes they want a vacation. Sometimes they want to. It all depends on them. So Amarka, it says in a pasuk, bizmanehem. What does it mean, bizmanehem? Zmano shazeh lo shmano shazeh. We just learned this on Bet Amud Aleph. On the first page, we just learned zmanehem. You needed it for zmano shazeh lo zmano shazeh. This time, meaning you cannot have the same. That means if the big cities are 14, the walled cities cannot be the same as the big cities. Zmano shazeh is not the zmano shazeh. It cannot be the same time. So for one is 14 and one is going to be the 15. So says the Gemara, ve'ema tleisad. So why don't I just say that the mukafim choma are the 13th? Why don't I just say it's the 13th, right? So says the Gemara, kishushan, like Shushan. Yeah, you heard? Like Shushan, right? What does it mean like Shushan? Right? He says, what do you mean like Shushan? He comes and he says, what does it mean like Shushan? Shushan, what does it mean like Shushan? What? What is it? The 15th. Just like on Shushan, 1 second. He says, yeah, he comes and he says, are you listening? It's a Tani today. Yeah, he says, just like on Shushan, right? Just like on Shushan. Yeah, he comes and he says, just like on Shushan. Right? Where did they read it in Shushan? On the 15th. They did it on the, so too on the 15th is Shushan. Okay? So anytime that you have a walled city, it's like Shushan. Shushan was walled city, so too they do on the 15th. Says the Gemara, Ashkechan Asiyah. That is only Asiyah. Right? What does that mean? We found by the Mishteh Simcha, children, please. Yeah? We found by Asiyah. Right? What does it mean by Asiyah? We found by Asiyah to do with the Mishteh Simcha that the Prazim do the 14th and the Mukafim do the 15th. What about by Zechira? Which means like this. There's a difference between Asiyah and Zechira. Asiyah, right, is Mishteh v'Yom Tov. That's Asiyah. Mishteh, eating, drinking. That's what you put out the thing of eating. Yeah, that is called Asiyah. Zechira is Kriyat Megillah. When you remember it, how do you remember it? By reading it. So there's a difference between fulfilling the Megillah, meaning that you're doing the Mishteh, the Simcha, the Yom Tov, the Sudat Purim. And there's a difference between reading the Megillah. So says the Gemara, I found by Asiyah, La'asot, to do. What about Zechira? How do you know that Zechira is going to be the 14th for the, right, as it said over there, Al-Kena Yudim HaPerazim Yoshvim Al Osim et Yom Arba'asar. Right, they are doing it. Doing it means the Suda, the Mishteh. Amarka, it says in the Pasuk, V'ayamim ha'ele nizkarim v'na'asim. Zechira and Asiyah are written right beside each other. Itkash Zechira la'asiyah. There's a Hekesh. You know what a Hekesh is? Juxtaposition. What's a juxtaposition? Close proximity. When you have two things which are written right by each other, I compare the two halachot. So since it's written in the Megillah, V'ayamim ha'ele, these days are nizkarim v'na'asim, they are remembered and they're done, they are fulfilled. So therefore, I make a kesh between Zechira and Asira. The both halachot are the two together. Okay, Nekuda. Next. Okay, next part. Okay, Matniti. Our Mishnah, Delo Kiaitana. Our Mishnah is not like this Tana. Why? In our Mishnah, what do we say? It had to be a walled city from when? Walled city from when? Yoshua bin Nun, right? From Yoshua bin Nun. So matnitin de lo kaitana. Our Mishnah is not like this Tana. There's a Tana that says, the Tana in the Braita, there's a Tosefta. Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha Omer, Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha says, Krakina mukafin choma mimot Achashverosh. He says it had to be from Achashverosh. Now, from the time of Yoshua bin Nun until Achashverosh, there's a lot of time, right? More than 400 shana. Harbe yoter me 400 shana. The first Bet HaMikdash was 410 years. Second Bet HaMikdash was 420. Remember that Achashverosh is at the end of the 70 years of the Churban Bait of the first Bet HaMikdash. So you have 410 of the first Bet HaMikdash, 70 years towards the end of the 70 years of the second Bet HaMikdash, meaning of Galut Bavel. Okay, that's already 480. Now beforehand, when Yoshua bin Nun came into the land, he came into land 2448 was when we left Egypt, no? 2448, correct? Then what happened was, then what happened is that even though 2448, what happened is that all of a sudden you had, from the time of coming into the land, Yoshua bin Nun, you had all the Yoshua, Shofetim, until you got to all the way down to David HaMelech, the Shlomo Melech built the Bet HaMikdash. So you had the Mishkan. Well, we had Mishkan Shiloh, Mishkan Nov, Mishkan, all the Mishkans. It's another around 400 years. So you're talking around 870 years minimum, right, of a difference. So there's a big difference between telling me, listen, there was a wall around, something in Achashverosh, or during the time of Yoshua bin Nun. So our Mishnah is not like the Tana and the Tosefta that we said. Rishon ben Korcha says, "Krachim amukofim choma mimot Achashverosh." Krachim, which are already going to be walled from Achashverosh, korim b'chamisha. They're going to read it from the 15 and the 15. My Tama, what's the reasoning of Rishon ben Korcha? He says it's a svara, very simple. Shushan, just like Shushan. Just like Shushan was just like Shushan was already going to be, right? According to everybody, we read it in Shushan on the 15th. Now, why? It was a walled city. So he says, just like the walled city of Shushan, right? It was going to be on the 15th. So too, any city which is going to be Mukaveh Choma from Achashverosh is going to be on the 15th. The Tana Didan, but our Tana, meaning our Tana of our Mishnah that says from Yoshua bin Nun, my Tama, what's the reasoning? He says, Yalif Prazi Prazi. He says, we learn a Gzera Shava. You know what Gzera Shava is? We just learned about a Hekesh. A Hekesh is when you have two words that are brought close together, proximity, and therefore you learn a juxtaposition. The fact that they're brought close together, you learn the two halachot together. Here's a Gzera Shava. Perazi, Prazi. One word written over there, one word written over there. I apply them both. Now this I have to learn from my rabbis, right? I have to learn it from my rabbis, and my rabbis are not rabbis. So says the Gemara, Prazi, Prazi. Why? It says in the Megillah Esther, Ketiv Hacha al Kena Yehudim Perazim. The Jews which were scattered, that they were living in the scattered cities, they are going to do it on the 14th. Uchtiv Hatam. Now it's written in Devarim. It's written over there. Kol ele orim betzurot choma gvoa delatayim uvriach leva me'area perazi arbe meod. Right there, it's written that these are all the cities which were walled cities, besides the cities which are scattered. Right, Male Halan, just like over there, it was Mimot Yoshua bin Nun. It was Knisa la'aretz. I mean, just like when they went into Eretz Israel, Yoshua bin Nun, Moshe Rabbeinu brought them until the border, and then it was Yoshua that brought them into Eretz Israel. So just like over there, when it was towards the end of Moshe Rabbeinu's life, and they were going to start going into Eretz Israel, it had to do with Mukaveh Choma from Yoshua bin Nun So too here, it's going to be Mimot Yehoshua ben Nun, right? Which means that we're going to learn the two halachot together. Okay, that's what we're saying here. So prazi, we're learning them together. Shushan was a svara. Shushan was a svara. Just like in Shushan, they read it on the 15th. So to any city that had to do with Shushan, which is Mukevet Chuma from Achashverosh, they read it on the 15th. Here it's a Gzera Shava. So says the Gemara, Bishlama Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha lo amar katidan nidan. I understand Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha. He didn't say like our Tana. Why? Delele prazi. He doesn't have this Gzera Shava. If you do not have a Gzera Shava, you can't invent a Gzera Shava. Gzera Shava, you have to have a masoret from your rabbi to another rabbi to another rabbi to another. So, okay, if you don't hold of it, you don't hold of it. I understand. So therefore, you said svara, logic. What's the logic? It goes according to Achashverosh, right? That was Shushan. Elatana didam, but our Tana, my Tama lo amar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha. What doesn't it say like Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha? Says the Gemara. What are you going to ask? Why doesn't our Tana say like Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha? Our Tana says from Yehoshua ben Nun. Why didn't he say like Achashverosh? So the Gemara is going to ask, I don't understand you. What's your question? My tama. Ta'ile prasi. I don't understand you. Remember, the style of the Gemara is, I always want to ask, why don't you hold like me? And why don't I hold like you? That's the style of the Gemara always, correct? And that's what we did also on the Mudalit. We said, why doesn't one Tana hold Rishum Abba, right? And why doesn't one Zmanim? No, he doesn't hold of it. He doesn't like it. The other one, no, because Yamim is for generations. We always ask, why does A not hold of B? And why does B not hold of A? So one more time, we have Achashverosh and Yehoshua ben Nun. Okay, walled cities from Achashverosh, walled cities from Yehoshua ben Nun. Walled cities from Achashverosh is a logic. Walled cities of Yehoshua ben Nun is a Gzera Shava. Prazi. So the Gemara asks, why is it that the Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha that he holds from Achashverosh does not hold like our Tana? Because he obviously didn't hold of a Gzera Shava. He never learned it from his rabbi. The fact that he didn't learn it from his rabbi, what's he going to do? He's going to learn from logic. What does logic say? Just like Shushan, you're going to say that it's going to be walled city during the time of Achashverosh. So to here, walled city during the time of Achashverosh. But according to our Tana, why doesn't he hold like Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha? Right. So what are you going to answer? Why doesn't our Tana holds from Yehoshua ben Nun? Why doesn't he hold like Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha that has to do with the Achashverosh? No, he does have tradition. That's the question. The Gemara bombs. He says, I don't understand you. My Tama, prazi. What are you asking? If I learned from my rabbi, prazi, I have a masoret, I have a tradition, right? No, not like Shushan. Prazi. Prazi is a Gzera Shava. That just like by Yehoshua ben Nun, it had to be a walled city. So to here, it had to be a walled city. So therefore, if I have that tradition, what are you asking me? Why don't I hold like the other one of Shushan? What do I care about Shushan? I have a tradition. I have a Gzera Shava. Right? What are you asking? Says the Gemara, Haki Kamar. This is what I mean to say. No, you're right. Obviously, if you have a Gzera Shava, it's strong. Right? Obviously. Ela Shushan davda kiman. What does Shushan do? Meaning, if you hold like the Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha that everything has to do with Shushan, so it makes sense. Everything has to do with Shushan. Shushan was during the time of Achashverosh. Everything is the center around Shushan. Yeah? So what happens though? Right? But here, now we're asking a different question. What about the one of Prazi? Prazi, what does he do with the city of Shushan? Was Shushan a walled city from Yehoshua ben Nun? No, it wasn't a walled city. Remember, Shushan was not even the capital. Shushan was nothing. What happened? Because Mordechai and Esther were there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to move the entire video, everything over there. He had to transfer the entire city, the capital, everything was transferred to Shushan, just so that way the miracle could happen there. So answers the Gemara, right? Achi kaman. Ela Shushan davda kaman. Lo kvarim, lo kemukavim. They can't do like cities, like scattered cities, and they can't do like walled cities. So Rava says, it's Kadi is a name. So it says over here, Shushan is always different. Why? Since the miracle happened with Shushan, that's why it's always different. What do you mean it's different? It's completely different. It's a special halacha. Why? Because the miracle happened. Okay? Fine. I understand that according to our Tana, that's why it's written Medina is country and country, and Ir ve'ir is city and city. Even though usually sometimes Medina could also mean suburb. Lav dafka mamash country. Sometimes it could mean suburbs, right? So he says, that's why it says Medina ve'ir ve'ir. Medina is lechalek b'mukafim chomal lemot Yehoshua ben Nun lemot Achashverosh. So when it says now, then you're talking about Medina is coming to exclude cities. What cities? The differentiation between the cities that have wall from Yehoshua ben Nun and cities that have wall from Achashverosh. Ir va'ir, also city to city, is also nami lechalek ben Shushan l'sharirot, from Shushan and other cities, because Shushan was different than all other cities. Ela le'Yeshua kolcha, but according to Yeshua kolcha, bishlam medina, I understand medina, right? Lechalek, to make a differentiation between Mukova Chomam and Chashverosh, Leshem Mukova Chashverosh, to do with the Chashverosh or not, but Ir va'ir lemayata. Why does it say Ir va'ir? When it says medina v'ir va'ir, suburb, city, country, whichever, each one is coming to make a differentiation between one another. So what is it coming to make a differentiation? So Amar lecha Rabbi Yeshua Kocha, says Rabbi Yeshua Kocha, Tana dida minicha, but according to us it is good. Kevin the itle, since he holds a prazi, medina lamale. Why does he need medina? Ela kra drasha udata, but it's coming to bring you a drasha. A drasha is like an explanation. What does it mean? Like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi udata. It's coming to teach Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. The Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, krach v'chol hasamuch lo, v'chol hanidaim. When you have a city, which is a walled city, okay, and anything which is beside it, or anything which is seen with it, nidon kekrach. It's like a krach, and therefore it's going to be on the 15th, which means Yerushalayim, we read on the 15th. But it's not only just Yerushalayim, it's anything which is around Yerushalayim. So for example, there was a whole question about Ramot in the olden days. I remember when I was in Israel, there was a whole machloket about Ramot. Does Ramot read on the 14th or the 15th? Why? It's not Yerushalayim. Right? In geography, it is Yerushalayim. It's considered Yerushalayim. Right? It's written, Ramot, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, whatever, Bolim, all of it is Yerushalayim. But technically, mitzvah the Torah, it was not Yerushalayim. Okay? So therefore, if it was not Yerushalayim, so then the question is, right, why would you read it on the 15th? So the Gemara answers why, because if it's close to it, or it's seen with it. If it's seen with it, or it's close to it, it also has the same din as Yerushalayim. Because Yerushalayim really is Yira Tika. Right? That's the Yerushalayim. All the rest is just beside it. So says the Gemara, Ad Kama, how much close does it have to be in order to be considered part of Yerushalayim? So Rabbi Yomi Avitem Rabbi Chaya Barabba says Rabbi Yomi something says Rabbi Chaya Barabba, Ki mechamatan leTveria mil, from Chamatan to Tveria, which is a mil. One mil is a kilometer. It's either 970 kilometers, right, the meters, or it's 1.05, whatever it is, kilometers. Okay. So says the Gemara, just say mil. So Kamashmanan comes to teach you the shiur of the mil. Kamaave, how much is the shiur of a mil? Ki mechamatan leTveria, from Chamatan to Tveria. Okay, so now comes, since we already mentioned Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, Rav Yirmiyah, or some people say Rav bar Abba, many times the Gemara goes on a tangent. You know what it's done? Just like in a shiur, you start a shiur, one person says one thing, and then you go on a tangent, and you go continue going. The exact same thing was the Gemara. The Gemara was a study. We're studying on a table. So I'm going to come and I'm going to mention one halach. And then you're going to say, yeah, but on that, and all of a sudden we come, and even though we're Masechet Megillah, we're going to be speaking about, I don't know what. So you're like, well, how does it do with Megilah? No, but that's just the way the Gemara goes, because we're going in a tangent. The same thing. One of the ways the Gemara goes on a tangent is by naming a name. If I say a name of a rabbi, many times I will say not only what he just said to do with Megilah, I'm going to say other things that he said as well. So this has nothing to do with Masechet Megillah. But says the Gemara, since we just brought down Rabbi Yirmiyah, and some people say Rechia Baraba, we're bringing down something else that he said. What else did he say? Man sepach sofim amun. Who were the ones that did man sepach? Remember, what is man sepach? Mem, nun, tzadi, pe, kaf. These are the letters in the alphabet that have sofit. Mem, mem, sofit. Nun, nun, sofit. Tzadi, tzadi, sofit. Pe. There's a whole question also, why do you do dafka man sepach and not go in order? Right? There's a whole question about that as well. So he says over here, Mishum sheratzul lelmos bazeh, sheotiyot elu tiknu haneviim. Man sepach is min sofim. Meaning, why do you call it man sepach? Go in order. Kaf is the first letter. So do kaf, mem, nun, tzadi, pe tzadi. Right? No. Where's Aleph? Where's Aleph? Right? The ones that have the otir, but start with the kaf. Why is the kaf at the end? So he says, no, it's min sofim. Right? That's a notrikon. It's an acronym. So if it's coming to hint us, who are the ones that instituted these letters? The last letters of mem sofit, nun sofit, tzadi sofit, pe sofit, kaf sofit, sofim. The Tzofim were the ones that did. Who are the Tzofim? The Nevi'im. Says the Gemara V'Tizbra. Can you actually say that? It's written in the Torah. No Navi could make something new in the Torah. You can't just have people come and start inventing things in the Torah. So they can't start making up letters. It doesn't exist. Right? Be'od, and not only that, Haman of Chasta, says Rav Chasta, Mem v'Samech shebaluchot, the letter Mem and the letter Samech in the Luchot, Benesa Yomdim. They were a miracle. Why was it a miracle? Think about it. Here you have the picture. Okay? Look at the mem and the samech. The mem and the samech. It's a miracle. How is this a miracle? It's a miracle because you have in the middle, right, the hole, and it's staying in the middle. How does it stay in the middle? How is it holding up? You take a brick, right, and you make a samech, and it's going straight through, right? You make a samech, Now, in the middle, there's a piece of brick. It's floating in the air. How do you do that? So that's a miracle. So it says that was going to be a miracle. So obviously, the Gemara is going to have to answer yes. Bezrat Hashem will continue to